23 minutes to 8. The death toll from coronavirus in England fell by more than 5,000 yesterday, or rather the official statistic fell because of a change in the definition of who was counted as having died from COVID. Previously, people who died at any point following a positive test, regardless of the cause, even if they died in a car accident, say, were counted in the figure. So is this measure better, and what does the headline statistic hide? The man who knows is Professor David Spiegelhalter, Winston Professor of the Public Understanding of Risk at the University of Cambridge. Morning to you.
Good morning.
The figure may be better, but we're all in danger of becoming horribly confused, aren't we?
I do feel sorry for everyone. I make it there's at least 5 different counts of COVID deaths going around the country at the moment. But the old one was ridiculous. I mean, if you look on the dashboard as they show it at the moment, PHE dashboard, they say 72 deaths in England reported on August the 11th. But in fact, NHS England report only 1 death in an English hospital on that day. And that may go up a bit to about 5. But the claim of 72 is just nonsense. So this new 28-day limit...
That really matters, doesn't it? Forgive me, that really matters, not just for a scientific assessment, but what we do as a nation.
People have been watching this daily figure and haven't realised how ridiculous it is. And it's going to plummet by about 80 to 90% from tomorrow. But actually, it can go the other way. Scotland's not reported a single COVID death for 5 weeks. Because it's using the same measure as we're going to be going to use. And yet there's more or less, yesterday, at least 30 deaths from COVID in Scotland over that period. So the pendulum, I think, has swung rather the other way. We're now saying there's been 41,000 deaths, but Office for National Statistics say 56,000 when they look at death certificates. It is very confusing.
But is this measure, the old measure, in other words, does it explain why we appear to be more cautious as a nation, less willing to go to work than any other European nation? Is there a danger, in other words, that we may be overreacting?
I don't think. I mean, this will make a difference, but it doesn't make a difference to the fact that we've done very badly. There's been a very large number of deaths. I also would say, though, that people, I think, are on the whole, rather too cautious, rather too fearful, and the communication hasn't helped in that. Particularly, that's why the current communication of the risks and the deaths at the moment are so vital. But the communication has been so poor. PHE dashboard has been terrible. Up till recently, it said the number of additional deaths was on Wednesday, 22nd of July was something. Well, they weren't. They didn't happen then, and they weren't COVID deaths. And the BBC have been just as bad. The news last week, they said on average in the last week, 58 people have died every day from coronavirus. That's terrible. It was about 15 to 20. So, the media has been responsible for not reporting the figures, I think, responsibly, and possibly then increasing people's anxiety and worry unnecessarily.
Well, then finish, if you would, David, in this way. If you had to, in layman's language, to communicate the risk to someone who's not in a special category, they're not, as it were, very old or already got what we call a comorbidity, how would you try and capture that for them? It's
very difficult because we're talking about 2 things. There's the risk if you get it, and that depends crucially on your age, and is roughly about the usual risk you've got of dying in the next year anyway, which is very low for younger people. And there's the risk of catching it, and that's a highly fluid thing. It's like it's more like a pollen count. What currently is the infection in your community, and that's again very low at the moment. The risks of catching it are low, but for some people, if you catch it, it can be very nasty. And so it is a complicated issue, and it is changing, and that's why. We really have to pay attention to the way in which the limited facts we've got are communicated.
Okay, must do better, I think, is the motto, and listen to more or less, as well as Professor David Spiegelhalter. Thank you very much indeed.